Hello and welcome to HODL Analytics for our second chapter of Technical Analysis Basics. In the previous episode, we learned support and resistance on the local level. When working with your local levels of support and resistance, we started with these two lines here, the closest support and the closest resistance. Working from there, you can always take it to the next level, looking for the next resistance in the upward direction and support in the downward direction. These here would be those lines. However, today we're going to focus on long-term time horizon. These are large-scale price movements, and they're especially helpful for big events such as macro or global events, or even large liquidity events such as when FTX, the international exchange, went bankrupt last year. This caused the huge price correction from these upper levels to this low. Events like this is where you want to look at historical chart values. Let's go ahead and dive in. As we zoom in, we can see our previous local supports and we can see how well they've held up. These highlight dots are where the lines were drawn. The chart was only up to this point when we first drew them. Since then, we can see that the price went down, tested almost perfectly on the support line which we drew, came back up, broke through slightly, almost like a rubber band. It came up and then threw straight back down, tested almost perfectly on support, came up, came down. Once again, it broke through and somewhat like a rubber band, came down and then bounced back up. We are currently hovering just above that line. So we can now see that these price levels are very valid. Now let's look at what would happen if we had a very big event, such as a huge jump in price or a huge crash in price. To do this, we have to zoom out, and we are using the one-day chart. We can come back here, and the main thing to keep in mind, we want to look at what would happen if we saw a large-scale breakout. Where is our main point of resistance or support? To find our next resistance point, we need to go up from our current local points. Our next line up is this spike here, coming backwards. And if we look at the cursor, we can see that it does coincide with this spike here. This little shoulder area here bounced perfectly off this zone here. And it does coincide with two more resistance spikes here. Now to draw our trend line on the long-term timeline, I like to use the ray tool. The ray lets you anchor the trend line at two different points and goes off into infinity. Our first anchor point will be the first spike at this level over here on the left. Our next anchor point will be the one closest to our current price. We want to set the line so that it is perfectly straight. Now, if we zoom, we can see that this line was tested here as resistance. When it broke out, it had some nice heavy breakout pattern, came back down, tested. The bottom of these candles show pretty close to this, and again, all the way through. Any of the price action that went through up to here was just the wicks, not the bodies of the candle. Again here, when it broke under, it tested as resistance. Going through, we have a lot of candle bodies sitting directly on it. Coming through, we see again, it tests very close, comes up, and when it did break through, it hit as a very solid resistance, driving it down when it touched the trend line, back up, tested again here, down, and all the way across to our current timeline. If it breaks this area at 1977, the next line will be about 2100. Breaking that, we want to see our next high timeline, which will be a large move. We're going to sit it right about here. As you can see, a little shoulder area, we're going to anchor it, and then we can see this next spike right about here. It sat as a support when it broke through and sits as a resistance through here. Again, a support all the way through here. When it broke down, it came, tested this old trend line up, and then tested here before coming back down. On the long-term time horizon, if 2100 breaks, we are looking first for 3,000. We can again set our anchors right here. Send it straight across all of these candles. You can see where the support and resistance candles do touch it. Make sure that it goes completely straight, and there is our next resistance. This will show us our pattern on the way up. Now, how about on the way down? In order to figure that out, we have to zoom out more and come all the way back to the previous cycle. We're going to build the same patterns on the previous cycle. To find the bottom support, we're going to come to the bottom of the previous cycle. We can see here, it came up, consolidated, jumped up here, found a resistance, found a support in this channel. The place I want to find is on this little move. We want to see the resistance point that flipped to support, somewhere in this area. We will grab our ray, we will anchor it right about here, going across the bottom of these candles. Now if we zoom out, we can see that this line goes straight across, tests here, and on the very bottom of our uptrend that is still currently in play. Next, we will move up towards the top of the previous cycle. Zooming in, we will take our ray. We want to find the main resistance point at the cycle top. As you can see, these shoulders here. It comes up, has the head, came down, made these shoulders. We want to make it as close to this zone as possible. Zooming in, we will anchor our first point to this green candle here, and then we will bring it all the way across and anchor it at the end of this set of shoulders here. Make sure that it is a flat line. Zooming out, we will see how it matches up across the way. We can see that it came, resisted here, shot all the way through, and when we found the breakout on the most recent cycle, as it started to break out, it came here, down, and retested this line. That is a key indicator. As we come across the whole cycle, we can see that when the market crashed, it came down and tested this point once again. Zooming in, we can see that it tested this support line right at the same place that it intersects the upward trend, which is still in play. This means that this level right here, at about $900, is the key area that we're looking in another major crash event, such as an exchange going bankrupt. To find more localized support and resistance, simply follow the practices that you learned in the previous video. We can now see 5 key levels for macro events. On a breakout, we will be testing this historical resistance at 2100. Breaking through that key level, we see that there's not a lot of resistance in play. There will be bounce points, but eventually we're looking at a long-term target of $3,000. Breaking 3,000, we're going to be looking at 3,700. Breaking that, we're going to the all-time high, which is pretty self-explanatory. However, to set it, simply take your ray, anchor it at the top spike. You can see where we double topped, simply setting your ray across the two top candles. Breaking that, we go into what is called price discovery. When a speculative asset goes into price discovery, that is where you usually see parabolic moves. I hope this video helped. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. And we will see you next time.